Dear you, I noticed your work already last Hong Kong at Kion Malin Gallery. You have here a big show. I noticed there are two things very special about you, two sides. One is about your how you create new way of showing videos, slide and slide, layers and layers. And the other point is about politics. So let's speak first about the idea of layers. Where does it come from? Is a simple moving image not enough?
Thank you. I would say an image is always composed of layers. There's always a foreground, an extreme foreground, a background, and an extreme background. So we only think about images usually as a sequence, one image after another, and we neglect sometimes to think about image in depth as layers. Mm-hmm. So especially in animation traditionally is always built up from layers. And I would say thinking about layers in a way connects already to your second question, which is about politics. Because I think with politics, of course, we are dealing always with layers. And sometimes...
And with liars.
With layers and layers, I like that. And of course with layers, actually this also connects to what I was about to say. Because when you construct an image with layers, you construct sometimes the illusion that everything is in the right perspective, but this is actually a construction. So that connects very well to what you just said about liars. So in a way, our perception is sometimes lied to. So this explains why I like to build my screens with layers by splitting the image in depth.
So you live in Singapore?
Yes.
So how to be Singaporean influence your work?
I would say I imagine myself very much a product of living and growing up in Singapore. I would say one of the major influences that Singapore has on my life and my point of view is the mixture of different points of view. So Singapore, we are made up of a community of different races and ethnicities, different religions. So from a very young age, you are aware that there are perspectives of other people. And of course, we try to enter into the perspectives of others, to see things through other people's point of view. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think there are moments when we also realize that there could be a limit to what we can understand of other people's point of view. And I think for me at least, I think it brings about some kind of a modesty about our own perspective, that our own perspective is just one of many. So I think these kind of ideas have, entered into my work quite a bit.
So, but how did you begin with being an artist?
I would say I came to art quite late in my life. Back, before the year 2000, we don't have much opportunity to encounter modern or contemporary arts in Singapore. But of course, that has changed quite drastically, I would say, in the last 10 to 15 years in Singapore. But nevertheless, when I grew up, modern or contemporary art was never a part of the atmosphere that I grew up with. But I grew up a lot with movies, with literature, with music. Those were my early loves. So I first encountered art seriously when I was in my university days in Singapore. Mm-hmm. I was studying in a course of mass communications, so nothing related to arts. But the course wasn't very interesting to me, so I didn't attend any classes. And instead, I spent most of my time in the school libraries, reading mostly philosophy. And then I encountered a book about Marcel Duchamp. And I would say...
What was the book?
The book was written by a German author. His name is Peter Berger. I think it's like a second generation Frankfurt School literary critic. And it's called The Theory of the Avant-Garde. And the main protagonist was Marcel Duchamp. And reading about Duchamp through his perspective, I would say opened my mind. And I decided to drop out of university in Singapore. And then I went to art school. So that's how this started.
But the most surprising things for me last March was that you push so much about the image. It's the image in the image in the image. Why?
I think, I suppose this has something to do with my early interest in the cinema. So I'm someone for whom the image is related to the way I think. I like to imagine that how I use moving image is as a way to think. Like moving images for me is a form of thinking, and I think through images. And I guess for my personality, I like to think at the limit of what is possible or why is something done only in this way and not another. So I think as part of the way I work, I like to push something to the limit without breaking it. But I would also say that I think I push things out of love and not for destruction.
But you invented something.
Well, I certainly hope I invented something along the way, but it's sometimes I think it's not really for me to say or to claim if I did or
Yeah,
not.
but because you invented a new kind of, for example, of cartoon, which are objects,
Yes.
3D objects, 3D, but not with glasses, with eyes.
Thank you. That's a very nice way of describing some of the work. I would say it's 3D, but at the same time it's also 2D because the type of animation that I use is always flat animation. I think the work that you were referring to from Hong Kong. So that type of animation is by now considered a more older form of animation, which is two-dimensional. It's flat. But at the same time, because of the way I projected it, using these different layers of the screen, there is a three-dimensionality to it. So actually what really interests me is always this combination of opposites, that it is both 3D and 2D at the same time. So this quality, I think, is something that I try to go after with a lot of
And
my
it could be linked also to the tradition of Bali shadows, for example, theater.
Yes.
No?
By what do you mean by
In Bali, the shadow theater?
Yes. Shadow puppetry, we call
Yes.
that. So the actual term from where we come from, it's called wayang kulit. So it basically means shadows theater, shadow theater, or it also connotes imagination, actually the word wayang kulit. So one of the works that I have in this exhibition at Luma actually contains a set of shadow puppets. So in the work, one or several tigers, we have two screens facing each other. Behind one set of screens, we do have a set of shadow puppets. So what interests me a lot with shadow puppets is that shadow puppetry, I think of it as an indigenous Southeast Asian form of projection. And usually shadow puppetry is made with a light source from behind the screen, and because the puppets are behind the screen. Most of the time when we use projectors, in the cinema, for example, the projection, the light comes from the front, whereas shadow puppetry, the light comes from the back. So that screen that I'm referring to for this work, One or Several Tigers, I imagine it to be supercharged with both projection, light from the front, but also shadow puppetry light from the back. So in a sense, for me, the East and the West sort of meets, in this one screen.
Recently, I went to the Louvre, and there's an exhibition dedicated to Mamluk, middle-aged Turkish, kind of from Turkey civilization, and what they were using puppet shadow already.
Yes.
So probably it comes from far.
Yeah, I think the roots of shadow puppetry is interesting. I think probably, it could have originated also in India. Yeah. So we find these traditions also in India. So it's something that kind of probably, I think, it makes sense, from India, Turkey, and Southeast Asia. So this is kind of an interesting history to...
And is there a link with your political message, if there's a message?
Yeah, I don't really know about message, Having a message is something I try to resist, in a sense.
You are not a postman, after all.
Yes. I sometimes think messages are the work of either advertising or propaganda. These are the forms that require a specific and direct message. Sometimes I think that art is, in a sense, the refusal of like a single message, so as to open up the space for interpretation and imagination. So I would say, in a way, I try to refuse having my work reduced into a single message.
But you think a lot about something, one can say.
Yeah, I can't help but be thinking all the time. So I would say certainly many political questions, occupy my thoughts and occupy my mind.
But it's also about occupation, your work.
Yes.
Occupation of territories, no?
Yes.
Very much.
Yes. To think about history, unfortunately, the history of, human history, is to think also about this constant problem of occupation. So these are questions that I have, but at the same time, I do not think my work proposes a single message in relation to these questions. Rather, I think what interests me in politics is often the messiness of it, the contradictions in it. So for me, thinking about about politics and the geopolitical is to kind of enter into a zone where nothing is fixed, and it's full of contradictions, and it's sometimes full of ambiguities as well. So rather than to approach politics from very clear, ready-made positions, I think my work is an attempt to try to think through some of these messy and convoluted histories.
Merci, monsieur.
Merci.